Bill, I know you've had a lot of history in your family and that you would like to share with us, and I'd like to give you the opportunity to just share a little bit. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Joe. You know, it was at the urging of Joe and Kelly that I finally bring out part of our family history that got lost somehow. It's a story that's never really been told. It's a story that I heard originally from my grandfather probably 75 years ago. And it was so dark and full of rumor and everything that I don't think I just passed it on. And yet it's a part of who we are. So let me just tell you a little story. It goes back to Dublin, Ireland in 1885 when my great-grandfather, Jack O'Reilly, was a boxer in those famous Dublin boxing clubs. And although the details are sort of murky and everything, he killed somebody in the ring one night, and after that they banned him from fighting in Dublin. And that was a very real tough time in Ireland at that time. There weren't many jobs available. And so he decided to come to the United States, and he signed on a ship that was leaving out of Ireland, and it was going around the Horn to San Francisco. So it took probably 3 months for him to make it to the United States. And he got to San Francisco, and at that time there were still people working in the gold fields, and so he went up and tried to find a job. And you know, he was unskilled and young, and one thing about him was his Irish temper. And he wasn't in the gold fields long at all, and the way the story goes is he got into a fight and killed somebody in the gold fields, and they were running him out of town. And just think of it, he's in a strange land, he's only 19 years old. Well, what does he do? Well, he signed on to a Mormon wagon train that was headed south, and they were eventually going to go to Salt Lake City. And so he rode with the Mormons almost to a point south of Salt Lake City. And I don't know the name of the exact town, but I mean, he was Irish Catholic and he wasn't about to become a Mormon. And so it became clear that he had to leave them. And he found some guys that were headed for Crested Butte. And originally they were headed for Telluride. It was still the gold era in Telluride. But somehow he ended up in Crested Butte. So it's about, by this time it's maybe 1990. And he comes to Crested Butte. The only job he could get was in the mine. And a guy named Bill Wiley was the owner of the mine. And that name's important in the story. I'll tell you why in a minute. But he fell in love with Margie Monahan, the first schoolmarm in Crested Butte. And they had quite a courtship. And after 2 or 3 years, they got married. And not long after that, they had a girl whom they named Hazel. I hope I'm not going too fast with all this, but this is the way I remember it being told. His temper was still a real factor, and one night after heavy drinking, I heard that he threw somebody through the front window at a bar called Kachivers or something like that. And he came home and they got into a big fight, and she stepped out on the porch, told him to go find somewhere else to sleep, and she slipped and fell on the ice. But a neighbor said that he saw Jack hit her before she fell. and she died from the fall. And so it was easy then for a jury to convict him of murder. And think about it now, he's got a 3-year-old daughter, and in this new country, and now he's being convicted of murdering his wife. And Bill Wiley, the owner of the mine, was able to take the little daughter, whom they named Hazel. He took her and told Jack that he would, forever, however long he was gone, that he would raise Jack's daughter. And it was just at the same time that they just built the new prison at Canyon City. And so my great-grandfather was the first person to be convicted of murder and put into that new prison in Canyon City. And God, he was there from, that was 1900. He was there clear up to World War II. By that time, he was up in his 70s. And as luck would have it, the government during World War II was trying to do some experimentation with a new drug that seemed to be popular all around, and it was called THC. And so my great-grandfather became part of that original government experiment, and he did a lot of experimenting with THC. And at the end of World War II, I think it was 1946, he was awarded a plaque for his work with the government, and they were going to parole him the next year. The governor had promised that, but he died. He died just before that could happen. And somehow, I don't remember who did that, but somebody brought his body all the way back to Crescent Butte for burial. And he, because of his work with the government and everything, he was sort of a local hero. And they buried him out in the cemetery there in Crescent Butte. And if you're ever in Crescent Butte, you go up to the cemetery up there on the hill, go to the very far corner in the back, and you'll find his gravesite there. He's still there, Jack O'Reilly. Now, if you ask me, why would good Irish stock with a name like Jack O'Reilly and Margie Monahan, how did we ever end up with the name of Ralph? Well, that's a story for another day.
Thank you, Bill.
Was that all right?